I'd started a different video and I was going to talk about building a small computer for photo scanning and other things like that. However, I seem to be missing half of the parts for the CPU cooler. I think they'll work, I'm not really sure. So let's pivot a bit and let's talk about something that every photographer should have. And so I'm going to be talking about monopods. There are three different varieties. The reason I think every photographer should have monopod is that it's a great way to provide that extra stabilization, particularly in those situations in which you cannot use a tripod. And there's many places that simply won't allow you to use a tripod. And if you plan to do any type of event photography, a monopod is a must. You should definitely have a monopod. It's most basic. It's simply one leg of a tripod, if you think of it that way. And so there's different ways to open it. Some of them use a locking collar, and that's a twist lock. Some of them use these little flip-up locks. I would say whatever works. I have two Manfrottos, but I'll show you another one. This one I've owned for many years. I don't even recall when I bought it, but as you can see, it's a bit worn. Take my word for it, it's a Manfrotto. And the one thing I did was, instead of just using the plain head on top, I use this little pivoting head. I'll explain why that's useful, and I'll show you why it's useful. The next type, this is a Chinese-made one, and one of the more recent innovations that they've done with monopods is they've added these little feet. And so what the little feet do is it essentially turns it into a tripod. And so you get the benefit of having a tripod and also having a monopod. This one happens to have a small locking collar down here, which allows you then to pivot the tripod or pivot the monopod, and that's very useful, particularly in event photography or even sports photography. I can find how that would be useful. If you want it to just be stationary as possible, there's this little small red locking collar, and you just tighten that, and then you just have a very stationary, fairly stationary monopod. This one, instead of just the plain head up top, I added a small ball head. This is Chinese made, as is the monopod. I would consider this to be medium to light duty. This one is fairly light duty, but it's well made. I think I've probably had this one for maybe 25 years. I've had this one for maybe 2.5 months. I've yet to use it, but from what I can tell, I think it'd be very serviceable. The addition of the ball head does give you a bit more flexibility, and this has a quick release mount to it. This uses the standard Manfrotto quick release plate, the smaller version of it, and there's a small little pin that you turn here on the side, and that prevents accidental release of the camera. I can't tell you much about the durability of this unit. It could last 2 years. It could last another 2 months. I suspect it's going to do fairly well. As I mentioned, this is a twist and release unit, so you twist the little collar to loosen it and twist again to tighten it. This has little pictures to show you which way to twist and loosen, but it's fairly self-explanatory. In order to drop these legs back or fold these legs into the up position, it has these small little tabs or ears. Just pull toward the end of the foot and it will collapse. Very simple. Finally, we're going to look at a larger unit. This is also a Manfrotto. This is, you can tell, is much more heavy duty, or it's much more sturdy. Let's not say sturdy. It's a much thicker monopod, and you can really see the difference between the two. This one opens to, I'm not sure how high it opens. Well, you know what, let's open it all the way and you'll be able to tell. For me, this is sort of imperfect. I've never had an issue with it. And so this opens, I would say that this is 5 feet. How about that Chinese one? Let's take a quick look, see how far that opens. Notice how thin the legs are. That would be a concern as far as stability. for example, I probably wouldn't mount a very expensive camera to this and then walk away from it even in that position. So this is going to be 6 feet because I'm 5'10". Used to be 5'11 3/4, but as you get older, you shrink. And you can see it doesn't take that long to collapse it. Now, with the Manfrotto, this Manfrotto also has, you can see this Manfrotto also has legs, but if you notice, these legs are very short in comparison to the legs on this one. Works the same, simply pull out on the legs, they snap into position, and then you have a fairly sturdy monopod or tripod. The difference with this one, this does not have a locking collar, so you can always take it and swing it to the left and to the right. And you can see that there is a position where it will no longer support its weight and it will begin to tip. If you swing it in the direction of one of the feet, however, it does give you a bit more stability off axis. So this one is very well built. It's a lot bulkier. There's quite a bit more weight to it. This also has a quick release mounting plate. This is a bit different. I think this is closer to what they call the Arca plate. It's not your standard Manfrotto quick release plate. And what's the height on this one? So we saw that my original Manfrotto is 5 feet. And I'm going to say that this one is more than 5 feet. Yes. I would say that that is probably 7 feet. In fact, it goes right out of frame here. But I would say that that's 7 feet. In most cases, you're going to be shooting it probably right around here. This has a fluid head on it, so it's really, and when I say fluid head, let me explain what a fluid head is. It means the head actually has fluid in it, and it provides for very smooth up and down motions. With most fluid heads, they naturally want to return to level. There is a small level bubble built in right here into the head, so you can tell when you are level. And does this one offer any pan? No. So with this one, you simply rotate the entire body of the monopod if you want to follow the action. This probably is much better for those cameras that do both video and audio, or video and stills. As you can see, when you needed to rotate things, you simply rotated. With this one, you have to rotate the entire monopod. Or there is an adjustment on the ball head that does let this rotate. And you can see how that works because it's a ball head. Now, if I had, I think you would have to put a standard video head on here if you really wanted to use this with a video-enabled camera. So let's talk about how this works. My favorite monopod. As I mentioned, I've owned this for probably a couple decades, I think. Never failed me. So I always start by popping out the quick release plate. Then you simply take the quick release plate. In this case, I like the quick release plate to be mounted at a 90-degree angle to the front of the camera. Tighten that down. Then simply pop that in here. And you heard it snap closed. I'll do that for you again. You can watch this handle pop in. Then I put that little locking lever over. Now, why do I like this particular head? Is because I can get some tilt to it just by loosening it. So if I want to use the monopod, but also tilt the camera down without tilting the entire monopod, I can just loosen this and let it rotate a bit. See, this still gives me great stability. Or you can just use it in this manner. So let's move this forward just a little bit. So I usually just extend the first two legs and then let the third one dictate where I need to shoot. Then once I have it at eye level, usually I'll bring it down a little bit below eye level. That way I can lean into it. See what I mean? And if I have to lean too far, but I need a horizontal shot, I simply loosen this, retighten it, and then I can just start shooting. I use this to shoot a lot of fashion. This is great for fashion. Often when you're in the photographer's pit, you have very little space. You have maybe a foot square. No, I would say you have about 18 by, you have about roughly an 18 by 18 inch space. Sometimes not even that deep. So what you can do is, obviously you're not going to be able to use a tripod, so this is where the monopod comes in handy. You can really plant that monopod between your legs. You can even pull it back a bit, and then you can just take your shots and lean into it. And because you have this little adjustment here, you can tilt this forward or back, and then you can really figure out exactly where you need to be. And because you have this height adjustment, it's great for this. I would say if you're taller than, what does this go up to? So if you're taller than me, if you're maybe 6 feet, I would say if you're more than 6 foot tall, get a different monopod. So always look at the maximum height of the monopod. This one, as I mentioned, I believe it appears to be 5 feet. So for those who are taller than 6 feet, perhaps you want one that opens up to 6'6" or 72 inches, or 78 inches would be 6'6". 7 times 12 is 84. So it'd be 84 inches for a 7-foot monopod. Or, is that right? Yeah, 72 inches. Did I say 74? I meant 72. All right, 72 inches, 7 times 12 is 84. Yeah, this for a 5'1" is going to be, this is 5 foot, and so that's going to be 60 inches. Next one will be 72 inches, then 84 inches for a 7-foot one. You probably won't need one taller than 7 feet, or might not need one taller than 6 feet, simply because you always have the height of the camera to add into it. One thing the monopod also is great for, see, now I can just pop off the camera because I have the quick release plate. One thing this is also good for is, if you want, you can use it as an extra seat. You could actually sit on this. I can't recall if I did, but it's good if you just need to lean on something for a bit, right? Because it has plenty of weight, because all your weight is actually pressing down on it. You're not creating any flex this way. If you find yourself using a particular brand of tripod or monopod, such as the Manfrotto, you can buy these separately. So I will always recommend buying extra quick release plates. In fact, I own several of them for a number of cameras. That way I can just pop them onto the camera, and if I need to switch tripods or switch monopods, you can easily do it without having to unscrew that quick release plate and then putting it onto another camera or lens. Because remember, some lenses have tripod collars with the foot attached to it, and so that way you can just attach this right to the tripod collar, and then when it's time to switch, you know, you just pop it on, pop it off really quickly. Often when you're shooting, whether it be sports or news or even fashion, you don't have that much time. So if you can save a couple seconds here or there, by all means do it. And see how fast that is? Super fast, right? So think of that. If I had a camera, I can just pop that off, get the other camera, pop it on, and get back to shooting. All right, let's weigh these. 1 pound, 6.9 ounces, or 1 pound, 7 ounces, and that's with the quick release plate. The Chinese one is 2 pounds, 4.1 ounces. And this big bad Manfrotto, this one is 4 pounds, 4.3 ounces. So this Manfrotto, while it has considerably more features than this simple Manfrotto, it also comes at a cost, and the cost is not only the price, but also weight and size. So you can see how this one really just tucks away. I can slip, this does not fit into a camera bag. However, I have been able to lay this across a camera bag. I've also used this as a walking stick. That's when I was particularly lazy on some days, and so it does work pretty well for that. This one is fairly lightweight. I think this one would be great for amateur use, for occasional use. I probably wouldn't trust it for heavy duty use. I think at some point it would fail. This also has a very obnoxious chemical, almost like cutting oil smell to it. And this one, like I said, I've owned a couple months, yet that smell is yet to dissipate. This one I bought used. Can't remember what I paid for it. I don't think it was that much. I think it was roughly the same price as this one. And obviously, this one is made for the ages. The Chinese one made in China. These two are made in Italy. Manfrotto also sells products that it makes in China. My experience is that they're not made to the same standard. That is, the durability isn't going to be the same when you buy a Chinese-made Manfrotto as an Italian-made. And it has to do, I think, probably with the materials, the choice of materials. These are just, these Manfrottos are just made for professional use, whereas the Chinese-made Manfrottos are going to be less expensive, but they're also going to be less durable in the long run. That's my opinion. Well, I hope that I've convinced you of the need for a monopod. Even if you're not a professional, you'll find that they really work well for almost any use. So if you like this video, hit that like and subscribe button. As always, if you have a comment, leave it down below. And if you have something you'd like to send to me, let me know. You can send me an email at contact@camera-talk.net. And see you on the next video.